All right, boys. Jack Grealish is joining Everton from Manchester City after just being purchased for like 100 million euros. And naturally, as a La Liga brained individual, I had some questions for what people thought this would be like if it happened in La Liga. So therefore, I tweeted when I saw it. I was like, oh, explain this in La Liga terms. Surely this will be funny. And it actually was. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through kind of some of the responses here, and we're going to, it's kind of have a little bit of a thought experiment here. Imagine what it was like if this actually happened to us, and talk a little bit about how wild this transfer is and why I wouldn't be surprised if things start happening like this in the future. I mean, it first and foremost, I was gonna tweet WTF, what the hell is this? Why did this happen? Because this is really weird. He was just 2 seasons ago important for Pep Guardiola. Now, what that means, as I've learned more about Pep Guardiola, has shrunk because Pep is not loyal to any players bar Lionel Messi and probably Kevin De Bruyne. He likes his setup. He likes having a lot of options, and he likes just messing around constantly over and over again. Despite if something works, it doesn't really matter. He has to perfect it or whatever that means in his mind. And so Jack Grealish, right? Fabrizio Romano said earlier today that homie is getting booted away. Hold on, let me get this. Jack Grealish is getting booted to Everton, who finished, hold on, let me see. Where did they finish in the Premier League? Not high. I remember that. Didn't they almost get relegated or something? It's a wild step down. Yeah, they were ninth. I do remember there being some points deduction issues and everything. They finished, oh no, they're in ninth right now. That's confusing. They finished in 13th, 10 points above the relegation zone. I do remember there being some nonsense about them getting relegated and the points deduction stuff that we're still waiting on from Manchester City in the Premier League. But nonetheless, Jack Grealish is leaving after being, so important, being a 100 million euro signing. I think he was the first Englishman to ever cost over 100 million euros. I believe that's correct. And, I mean, obviously that's not the same anymore because Jude Bellingham cost that much. Who else cost that much? I don't think Cole Palmer did. I don't think Trent, he was obviously free. However you want to get into that. So, naturally, seeing this, I thought it would be really funny if we had a little thought experiment about what it would be like if this happened in La Liga. I tweeted out, explain in La Liga terms, and this interaction just went kind of crazy. That's a lot more than I normally get, and we're going to kind of go through some of the points here and see what we think, see if it, it does work out. First one, 2020 Griezmann to Celta Vigo on loan. Wait, was he on loan? Oh, it is on loan. Deal agreed with medical booked. Yeah, that's crazy. So, Fabrizio was his Bayagita says 2020 Griezmann to Celta Vigo on loan. I think this is probably the most accurate to me, where Griezmann was actually good for Barcelona. The problem is, when Griezmann joined Barcelona, they had Messi, and so it just, the two of them playing together just never really worked, and it didn't really make any sense. And the weird stuff is, when Barcelona finally lost Messi, right, you think the opportunity for a guy like Griezmann, who operates in a similar position, does a similar thing, a similar kind of pseudo number 10 role, you'd think he'd stay and continue playing. But Barcelona were in such a financial hole that they had to dump him, and I think they loaned him initially, or loaned with an option to buy, to Atletico Madrid, and and that was that, really. But this is, I don't know, for him to go to Celta Vigo would have been wild, right? It doesn't make any sense. Like, clearly, Grealish had no suitors. It's really, really weird that you'd think Grealish probably still has game, right? It's not like he lost his entire ability in 2 years, though. I have seen that talked about with Pep kind of changing, because he was such a free thinker, so wild, such a weird decision maker, right? Adventurous, had the most take-ons, was fouled the most, yada, 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 all these things. Griezmann, it's a little bit different, where he had maybe a longer track record, you could say, in La Liga, and so it was maybe more of a certain product, but I think this is probably similar. And then the next response is my favorite by far. It's Hazard joining Getafe. I said his body could never handle those dark magic training sessions because, oh my God, Getafe are they're not playing football in training. They're playing rugby. I don't know. They're bringing everybody's older brother in and having them fight like they were kids again. It's Wallahi tactics. I don't even know what that means. And they're just going after each other. Hazard wouldn't have been built for that, but it's that kind of big of a deal. And I just think it's so weird that we're in a space today where that's not that crazy, right? I think if this happened in 2022, Hazard, Griezmann. Hazard came later, but Griezmann, or the next one is Coutinho to Getafe from Lorenz, and I think that's a similar one where it's, Coutinho to Getafe. It makes sense. We're just a major signing, right? Getting dumped to a very low league table, one that's not threatening. Not even like it's not even Aston Villa. It's not like Griezmann came from Atletico and he went back to Atletico. Hazard never left anywhere, but these guys going back to the same level they were before. Yes, Aston Villa were a different club. I think he played for Aston Villa, right? Grealish played for them when they were a little bit less competitive than they are now, but not Everton. Everton have sucked for like 2 or 3 years, been really, really bad and in bad financial shape, and now he's going right back down there. And it's a loan deal, right? It's not a permanent thing, so who knows what's going to happen, but it's really, really wild. We're seeing a lot more Rodrigo to Getafe, and actually it's interesting that he says this, Ishmael, because there's been talk about Rodrigo going to Man City now, which is weird. And also Real Madrid's asking 100 million euros for him, which is ridiculous because it's very clear they don't want him. And to think they still have a foot to stand on in negotiations is weird. I do think they'd rather keep him than sell him for little peanuts, where Barcelona are kind of, we have to sell things, which is why Inigo Martinez was kind of forced out. Saul moving to Sevilla, Rodrigo to Valencia. If Nico Williams ended up at Barcelona, didn't perform well, and then went on loan to Celta Vigo, fall from grace, Ferran to Celta, Lamar to Mallorca. That's an interesting. Bellingham to Alaves. That's a good. I think that's a really, really good example of if it's like a major signing, somebody that's going to be a big player, a big role in the club, a big deal. That's how big of a deal Grealish was to nothing, to not nothing, but to just another player in the league, another solid player in the league. It's a major difference, and it's, I don't know, shocking that maybe Man City were dumb enough to play 100 million for him, or that Pep Guardiola is insane enough to let things like this happen. I don't know. It's a little thought experiment, right? Ferran going to Espanyol, Danjuma, something, Ronaldo to Almeria. That would have been weird. Let's see, Isco to Betis, Endrick to Getafe. That's something that's funny. Paul, that's a good shout here from Paul, because that's something I actually see happening. But because Endrick, what's happened to him? We've heard nothing about him. And actually, it's probably worth a video on Vitor Roque and Endrick, just the kind of forced Brazilian signings that if Esteval Willian doesn't do anything at Chelsea, it's just added to the list of Brazilian talents that were really, really forced. And given this wildly inflated price tag because Vinny and Rodrigo had succeeded, and therefore other Brazilian talents are equally expensive now, I think it's a masterwork from the Brazilian scouts and Brazilian, financial guys in charge of putting a price on their heads. But this is, it's similar. It makes sense for this situation, and I'm just surprised Grealish left. I don't know if I'm glad it never happened to Coutinho and he went to Bayern, and then where did he end up after Bayern? Let me see. What happened to Coutinho after Bayern? I'm just glad Griezmann too. I was such a big fan of Griezmann that I'm glad it didn't happen. But yeah, boys, I wanted to get on here, have a little conversation with you guys, talk more football, and just get into what's going on in the football world. He went to Liverpool, to Barcelona, to Bayern Munich, and then he went to Aston Villa. Okay, Aston Villa came in 14th when he went there. So it's kind of similar to him going to Aston Villa, I guess. But he was dog water at Barcelona for basically the entire time. Maybe after the first season he was okay, but it's still, he was never great. I remember watching him. First season he was okay, but he was never it, in my opinion. Never like a consistent, the guy. Then he got injured and all that mess happened. I don't know. It's still, Grealish is just in his own league with that whole mess. But yeah, guys, that's all. Just want to get in here, have a little chat about that, and thought it would be funny. And see what you guys have to say in the comments too. But yeah, boys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Also, wait, hold on. Check out the video on the main channel, linked right here, all about Inigo Martinez and the defensive problems for Barcelona. Peace now. Goodbye.